that because one thing I want everybody to know is, not only was he active duty, but if you've been following our show, we have been talking about all the haters that have infiltrated not only our military, the National Guard including especially. We noted a lot of white supremacists have targeted, these have targeted law enforcement and the military for infiltration, not just because it gives them the right, to kill, but also because they just want to have power over other folks. And I just, want to point out that we have done shows talking about the studies around how much infiltration of law enforcement and the military there have been, or how people get converted once they even get in. Oh, we've done a lot of shows on this issue, and we will continue.
Barbara, 15 seconds more. The most important thing about this infiltration is they have access to the most superior weapons. All this, training in military, especially the National Guards, there's so much stuff that's taking place that's not being recorded. These people have access to offensive weapons. Wow. All right. Well, with that said, why don't we get into the first big question? Terry O'Neill, tell us what to you are the three most important matters that you are hoping that our listening audience will be paying attention to this year, 2025, paying attention to it and determined to make a difference. What are your top three?
Well, Barbara, I think one of the most important things that's going to happen in 2025 is we are going to start seeing what an oligarchy looks like, or what it looks like and feels like to be governed by an oligarchy. And I want your listeners to be aware of two things about oligarchies. Number one, it's not new, but it's going to be talked about a lot more. So let's pay attention to it. Basically, an oligarchy is simply kind of the melting together of government and the private sector. So Elon Musk has been put in charge, along with Vivek Ramaswamy, of this the Department of Government Efficiency. And when you say efficiency, you can't just leave it at efficiency. Efficiency simply means more benefit than there is cost. But efficient for whom? In other words, if this thing is quote-unquote efficient, it's more benefit. Who's getting the benefit? Well, that would be the very richest people around the globe. And that's the other piece about oligarchy, is that oligarchy is international and has been for a very, very long time. So Elon Musk goes over to Germany to try to influence that election the way he did here because he's an international oligarch. And why wouldn't he? And I think that all of his buddies in the international oligarchy that we're beginning to see emerge and get a lot more information about, that's just how they think. And the third thing about oligarchy is that it's all about profit maximization. It's not about a business simply making a profit. Like you produce something or you provide a service, you have employees, you treat your employees fairly, you pay them fairly, you get a profit at the end of the day. That's profit making. What oligarchies are about is profit maximizing. Now, to maximize profit, you have to squeeze your employees for every last drop that you can out. You've got to squeeze your customers, give them the most cheapest product to produce that they will tolerate. Again, squeezing your customers so that more money floats up to your shareholders, which are really the private equity firm owners and hedge fund managers from Wall Street. These it's not just you and me as shareholders, right? So profit maximizing is what the oligarchs are all about. Final point, I just want to bring it down to a concrete example. So supposedly the MAGA people, the Steve Bannon and other people who are deeply anti-immigrant, are now all upset with Elon Musk over these H-1B visas. These visas allow people from outside the United States to come here and work for companies because they supposedly have greater expertise. They have, a type of education or expertise that fits the needs of American businesses here. Well, there's a supposed fight between those guys and Elon Musk. He wants more visas. Why? Because H-1B visa holders are highly susceptible to being exploited. They can be paid less. What happens when you pay some workers less? All the workers have to accept less money, including American workers. And that's what oligarchy is about, right? Squeezing the workers so that you can get more profits up to the owners of the corporation. So this whole visa fight is about, will the oligarchs be allowed to squeeze people? Now, the oligarchs have been using racism and hate and misogyny to bring a lot of people who know that there's something wrong with their country to bring them to the side of the oligarchs. The question in my mind is, can we, on the progressive side, can we promote a message of inclusion and openness and welcoming, so that it's not racist hate that drives people who know that they're not getting enough money, they don't have enough money to make ends meet? Can we reach out to them and bring them over to the side of openness and welcoming, and open everyone's eyes to what the oligarchs are actually doing to us?
And thank you so much for that, very much, Terry, for that focus on the oligarchy. People, here's what are the three characteristics of an oligarchy. An oligarchy is a small group of people having control of a country, organization, or institution. Here are the three characteristics, and think about what you're watching with Elon Musk. He can't even be elected in the United States because he's not United States. He was not born here. He doesn't qualify to be elected president. He is, and I don't think he could actually win an election. But in any event, the three characteristics are that business groups are considered oligarchies if they meet the following criteria. They are the largest private owners in the country. They possess sufficient political power to influence their own interests. The owners control multiple businesses, coordinating activities across sectors. Who are we talking about? Rich. Government by the rich for the rich. Don't be confused. Don't think that because they use white supremacist talk and language that somehow they're thinking of you. You are not part of what they're thinking about. They're only thinking about their own pocketbooks. Oh my goodness. Okay, Daryl, I gotta turn this loose. You know, I'm getting wild. Daryl, I know we want to ask the same question of Ernie, right?
Professor Quarles, I know that you also, I'm sure you want to weigh into what I refer to as the privatization of government responsibility, and I think that's what we're hearing as Terry O'Neill was laying out, what the oligarchy was and is, and what she sees happening with the incoming and quite honestly, some of the prior administration. Did you want to weigh into that as well, Professor Quarles, and give us some of your thoughts about top priorities for 2025?
Absolutely, Daryl. Thank you so much. Excuse me. I mean, for me, this is really, we're talking about the defense of our democracy and the fight against fascism. And I know that word, for many, is difficult to understand. They've heard it, but they don't really understand what, in fact, fascism really means, what it brings to the table, what we need to be thinking about, and what we need to do. And I think ultimately, for me, the very first thing to understand about the nature of these authoritarian kinds of regimes is that, and we've already started to see it. I mean, we've seen how they use basically, they've been coming out with a lot of things and saying that they have a certain legitimacy in trying to make these things happen because they have a mandate of the people. Well, we know that there's no mandate based on the election results, but nevertheless, they throw that out. But the things that I think are critical to understand is, number one, going forward, everything you look at in the news, understand how is it dividing and ruling. In other words, they will divide and rule. Their strength lies in their unity, in their one voice, in their one ideology. But then so too does ours. And we need to understand that. You know, they're going to call us, they call their supporters patriots, they call us traitors. But ultimately, we can't let them divide us. that we are one people, one nation, with one common good in mind, obviously the defense of our democracy. And in that instance, I think we have to also fight for every media outlet. Every journalist that is banned, censored, or labeled as an enemy of the state, we've got to deal with that and address that, because there's no hope for freedom where there is no free press. And this television show, Barbara, that you've conceived of and put together, and all the work you do at TJC is just one example of the importance of a free press. The other thing is we have to understand that they're going to, through convoluted laws and threats, they will try to control mainstream media and limit press freedom. And then finally, I just want to say they will distort the truth, deny facts, and blatantly lie. They will try to make you forget what facts are. Sedate your need to find the truth. They will find post-truths and alternative facts and replace knowledge and logic with emotions and fiction. Okay? They will replace knowledge and logic with emotions and fiction. And so those would just be, some of the things that I would say need to be on our agenda. And I'll just comment, very quickly, just to follow up on the previous points that were being made on these bombings. And clearly, I pray for the folks who were impacted there. But we've also got to understand what we may not hear about both of those situations. And we've also got to ask ourselves, folks who serve in the military are fraught with all kinds of trauma and mental illnesses. We understand that. But we've also got to understand that they're particularly sensitive to narratives of indoctrination, because systemically that's what the military does. So when we see these kinds of things, a lot of people will say, well, what's the message? What message is it sending? It's not always about the message. It's about chaos. These two acts create a space of chaos. So people are just in fear. And that is what these things typically have a tendency to try to accomplish. It's not like you can directly link one to another. I mean, that's what the FBI and other people are trying to do. We've got to become much better critical thinkers in this time.
All right now. And Daryl, we have, that was powerful. Thank you so much. Whoa, you and Terry are on fire, and Lewis, you guys are on fire. Now, Daryl, we have been joined by Andreas Cubillos. Why don't you introduce him, and let's get Andreas into this conversation.
Oh, absolutely, Barbara. It's always great to have back Andreas Cubillos. Andreas is a TJC alumni, a fellow, Barbara. He also is the deputy organizing director at People Power for Florida, graduate student as well at Florida State University. So, Andreas, welcome back to Igniting Change. Welcome into the fray, because we're talking about what we're expecting for 2025, and perhaps you can tell us from the Gen Z perspective what fights you see, what challenges do you see coming in place for 2025, particularly coming out of Florida.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start off by saying thank you so much, Attorney Jones and Attorney Arnwine, for having me on the show again. I love coming on here and getting to see the folks from the TJC family. So thank you for having me, and Happy New Year. In terms of what's going on here in Florida, the youth movement is alive and growing, which, I'm excited and glad to hear about. There's so many youth-powered, youth-run organizations that are popping up all over the state. For example, we have Youth Action Fund. I currently serve as the vice chair of the board for that organization, where we find as many young people who are looking to get involved in politics. Maybe they don't know where to get started, but they know that they need training and they need money, and that's what we are trying to provide for them. We provide them with training on how to organize effectively. We provide them with funds so they can organize around the issues that they care about: voting rights restoration, climate change, ensuring that young people are informed on the issues. Those are some of the campaigns that we've been able to run, which I'm, very, very pleased about. One thing going into 2025 that I think a lot of people in my generation are concerned about is how legislation is going to impact them directly, specifically, with issues like gun violence prevention. We know that this administration is particularly in the pocket of the National Rifle Association and gun manufacturers across the country. And so I think that, one of the things that